Hey, this is DaVinci from Soliloquist Sound. I'm giving my first impression on the MPCstuff.com Thick Fat Pads for the Mpc and MPD and MPK products, and also the Mpc Quarks that make the pads more sensitive. So let's take a look. Just a quick word about the Mpc pads or MPD pads. They're actually the same exact part from the Mpc series. A lot of people complain about them not feeling right, but what a lot of that is the fact that the Mpcs have a lot more metal in their construction, therefore, and just genuine general girth to the way that they're produced. So they have a little bit more of a foundation that everything sits on. So when you hit the pads on an Mpc, they feel a little different because there's less give with the rest of the unit. When you hit an Mpc or an MPD pad, you kind of feel it resonate throughout the plastic casing of the MPD, which makes it feel a little different. As far as the sensitivity between the Mpc and the MPD, I'm not going to speak too much on that. That's kind of a relative thing in my opinion. But as far as the pads themselves, they're the same exact part. They look just like this, and they're interchangeable with the Mpc series, made of the same thing, and they're the same exact part. So the pads themselves aren't any different between the Mpc and the MPD pads. When you look at the stock pads that come with the MPD, you'll see that they don't raise too much. The height between the plastic casing and the metal backing that the pad sensors rest on provides only a little bit of raised pad above the casing, and for some people that's a little weird. You know, when you hit the pad, sometimes if you miss a little, you'll feel the edge where the pad meets the casing a lot sooner. It's not a big deal to me, but it does look a little different, and therefore make it feel a little different of an experience. What I recently got was the Mpc Thick Fat Pads from MPCstuff.com, and these are double the thickness of the stock pads, as you can see. And I've already installed a pair or a set of the red thick fat pads on the MPD 32, and as you can see, it definitely is raised a lot more than the stock versions. As far as how they feel good. Even though they're not wider, they do feel like I have more area to hit. I know that's not true, but it does feel better when I'm hitting them and I'm not encountering the casing at all. The really determining factor that makes these different from anything else are the Mpc Quarks. Okay, and what these are a little piece of cork, a thin slice of cork that's cut to fit exactly where the sensor and the back of the pad meet within the MPD or Mpc, and there's an adhesive side to it. You take that off and you put it on the back of the pads here, and as you can see, it raises the area that would actually touch the sensor inside. So whereas there's a little bit of a buffer zone here before the pad engages and hits the pad sensor, here the Quarks allows the connection between the sensor and the pads to happen a lot sooner, and for that reason it takes less pressure to actually trigger the pad sensor itself from hitting the top of the pad. There's a couple reactions I have to this. For one, it definitely does work. when you play these pads, you get more of a response. Even hitting something maybe very lightly, you're still gonna be triggering the pad. Whereas before, depending on how light you hit the pad on the MPD, sometimes it wouldn't trigger at all, and sometimes it would trigger lightly. I get a lot more consistency in playing these pads. And on the different side of things, I wouldn't say it's necessarily negative, but on the other side of things, since you are getting rid of that buffer between the buffer of space between the pad and the sensor, there's a slightly noticeable difference in, I guess, what I like to call bounce on the pad. Here I have one with a Quarks on it, and this one is just stock without the Quarks. And what you'll notice, even from looking at it, when I hit this, or maybe you won't be able to notice, but you'll see how it allows a little bit of an indentation, a little bit of movement on the pad. So there's a little bit of give when I do that. When I hit this one, it's a lot more solid of a hit because there's less give of air between the back of the pad and whatever's underneath it. So because of that, you're getting a little bit less bounce. And again, it's very subtle. You're getting a little less bounce on some of your hits. Now, that's not anything that really determines whether or not you play well or anything. It's just a matter of preference. I personally enjoy the little bit of give and the sensitivity I feel when I actually feel like it's being depressed a little bit, as opposed to just a solid rubber surface that feels more dense when I hit it. Having said that, again, it definitely makes for a better playing experience, depending on how you play, having the Quarks installed, because the sensitivity is greater and the consistency of hits is greater as well. So it's just really something I'd get used to, but I like them. I'm gonna install them on the other MPD.